Hi, I'm Nicole
And Rebecca.
of conquerbooks.com.
And today we're reading Wanderers by Chuck Wendig, a story about sleepwalkers at the end of the world.
The Wanderers by Chuck Wendig was such an excellent read. I really enjoyed it. What are you doing? Rebecca. Becca. Becca. What are we doing here?
I had a dream that we could film in front of my bookshelves today. So, here we are at Nicole's house to talk about The Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. This was a pretty terrific story. It opens up with two sisters, Shana and Nessie. And Nessie's the younger sister, and she just gets up and she leaves her house. And her sister follows after her, concerned, and it seems like Nessie is sleepwalking. And Shana follows her. They start down a country road. Like, at what point do I go and get my father for help with this? Like, what is wrong with my sister? She's just completely blanked out. She just keeps walking. You can't stop her. And then Nessie's heading for a road, and so Shana then decides she has to stick with Nessie no matter what. She's her protector. And so she does that for some miles, and then she decides that she really has to go back and get her father because this seems really unusual. She's not successful in waking up her little sister, and her little sister is special to her. She's smart, she's funny, she's the one in the family that everybody expects to make a difference. And so Nessie is, protected by her father and her sister. Their mother disappeared years earlier, just walked out of a grocery store and never came back. So they're all very protective of Nessie. And the father comes with them, and suddenly there's this second person walking alongside Nessie, and in the exact same way, just zoned out, sleepwalking. They can't wake them up. And more people join this herd of sleepwalkers that moves out of Pennsylvania, where Chuck Wendig lives, and across America. And this story had such a huge cast of characters. We should mention that this is another 800-page behemoth. It is a serious book. One of my favorite characters was Benji, who was recently fired from the CDC for falsifying information, but he thought it was in the best interest of the public to try and protect them from something that may be coming. But he is contacted by this woman named Sadie, who says that something sent her AI called Black Swan, which is a computer program that she developed, but it's not a program, it's true artificial intelligence. And Sadie says, I don't know why, but Benji, Black Swan has sent me to you. You need to come and take a look at the situation. And so there's a lot of different point of views in the story in addition to them as well.
The book has been compared to a couple other books that it does relate to pretty accurately. One of them is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which was a great read also. I really enjoyed that. And that one is about post-apocalyptic. You don't get so much presence in the apocalypse itself, but it's afterwards, and you're following a character who's with, what do they call it? A traveling theater. Yeah.
Troupe.
They're doing Shakespeare when Shakespeare doesn't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really like their motto, because survival is insufficient. Why it's important to keep classical interests going after the end of the world. It's also being heavily compared to The Stand by Stephen King for a couple of reasons. One is because there's this virus that seems to be wiping out a good portion of the population, which in Stephen King's The Stand, there's this cold that just decimates the entire population of the entire world. And you get this really graphic, really gritty look at how that would play out in large places. And what would then happen to the survivors who are trying to find each other at the end of it. And they're on this quest almost, walking across America. And that really echoed with this. There's this herd of sleepwalkers who are traveling across America. And so there's this really big sweeping feeling to both books, and I think deal with a lot of questions about society and questions about how we can keep this pace of growth that we have in current times without really impacting ourselves negatively, because in both stories that's how viruses are able to travel so quickly, because we have airplanes, because we're in constant contact with hundreds of people throughout the day. So a really good update on the theme. I thought it was very enjoyable reading Wendig's version of it.
Yeah, he's an excellent writer, and this is the first book that I've read by him, but his writing style is so much fun. It really carries you through the story. It's one of those books that you feel like the author just sat down and wrote it one day. Like, it's just so smooth, and it just carries into the next scene in the story. And the language he uses is really fun. His description is great. In this story, it's a big story. There's a lot to talk about. Mm-hmm. So Nessie disappears, and they've got this band of sleepwalkers, and that's what carries you into the story. But then you start to realize that people are afraid of these sleepwalkers for really no other reason except that they don't understand them. And Chuck Wendig does a lot, especially in the beginning of his chapters. He's got these little snippets that are like supposed to be excerpts from Twitter and Tumblr and all the kinds of social media and podcasts. He touches on a lot of the different media outlets we have, and he uses them to show how news carries, and people make their comments and things get distorted, and fear carries very, very easily. He's got characters that are, in particular is Matthew, who's a preacher, and he is a well-meaning character. He's a family man in a small town in Indiana, and he just wants to show people God's light. That is his meaning for being in the world.
Should be simple, right?
Should be very simple. But he very quickly hooks up with some not so well-meaning people who are, how else can I say it, but convinced that the sleepwalkers are a ruse from the opposite political side, and
terrorists,
the devil's pilgrims.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just explodes. It just blossoms, and it feeds on itself. And it's darkly similar to some of the fears that we have going on today. Some of the things that we deal with, especially online, when news, you can never tell if it's true, especially when you're listening to other people. Mr. Matthew Burt has a podcast, and he's reaching thousands upon thousands of people, telling them what to believe, essentially.
And how do you know? Because, Benji from the CDC, well, formerly of the CDC, doesn't really have any platform to stand on. The CDC itself doesn't really know what's going on. And so I think that opens up a lot of avenue in the book for these conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And it was done so successfully. And at the root of it, Shana's just trying to protect her sister Nessie. The military is trying to come in force and remove Shana from Nessie's side. And there are individuals who kind of stalk the herd as they're going across the American landscape. And all Shana wants to do is protect her sister. And so you really empathize with her as a character, that she's trying to do one simple thing, protect her family. But there's all of these bigger outside forces around her. And Wendig did a terrific job of really mirroring the things in society that sometimes we're afraid of.
A little too good. A little too good of a job.
Creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's political, it's socioeconomic, it's environmental, it's technology. I felt like he touched on like every single facet of society and said, hey, this is how it can go wrong. Please read about it in this book. It was weird.
It was less of a statement too. Sometimes you get books or media that are like, this is how things should be, or this is what I think. And this was just a reflection. It wasn't, I didn't feel like he dumped his opinion in there at all. He just showed something that was very, very real and that maybe we don't want to face.
Yeah. It kind of goes without saying, because hopefully you feel our enthusiasm, but I think this is my favorite book that I've read this year. One of my favorite books of all time, which when you find a book like that, you get so excited about it. So I would definitely recommend everybody read this.
Even without the really deep topics, the plot just really moved. It was exciting. There was a lot to read. It was wonderful. And his characters were fantastic. Every single character had so much backstory. And I think that's what makes a character really fantastic, is A, backstory, and B, that personality you get in their dialogue. Benji was also one of my favorite characters. He like Rebecca said, got fired from the CDC, and he's really dealing with this feeling of failure and despair, and like he's not going to come out of it, and he kind of gets involved, but he's still like, this just isn't going to go well because people are holding a grudge against him. And he gets wrapped up in Black Swan.
There was good humor too. I felt like all of the characters had ways that they could be funny. Even the AI character discovered humor at some points in the novel, and you can tell that Chuck Wendig is a funny guy, an interesting guy, and Nicole actually emailed with him a couple months back randomly, and I didn't appreciate at the time, I'm sorry Nicole, I didn't appreciate how cool that was that you emailed with him. So hi Chuck.
Hi Chuck. Yeah, you always feel like big authors are inaccessible. They're so busy, they've got things to do, they've got 50,000 other people trying to get their attention, and so generally I think a lot of us don't even bother because we're just like, yeah, they've got other people vying for their attention. He responded in like a half an hour. And I actually said, I was like, whoa. Good job, Chuck.
Yeah, so do read The Wanderers. We are actually going to take a book break from next month. We'll be posting some other videos though, things from our book collection, some lists, some get to know you videos, and so we'll pick up again with our monthly book in September. But we'll still see you next month, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook too, because we're active on there every day. We have great community discussions, lots of fun games, and we have a book blog, conquerbooks.com, that you can check out as well. Bye.